blood circulates through the heart and circulatory system. But, like you guys, did we go over a question today?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So what is the function of the circulatory system, Sydney?
Oxygen to all cells.
To provide oxygen to every cell in the body, and also to remove what? Carbon dioxide and other waste products. Exactly. That is the purpose of our circulatory system: to deliver food and oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our body. Like I said earlier, every cell in our body must have a constant supply of oxygen in order to stay alive. What do they need this oxygen for? What process?
Respiration.
Cellular respiration. While these cells are living, they also produce waste, carbon dioxide and other waste that must be removed from those cells, so the circulatory system also does that. And the main pump of the circulatory system is the heart. The heart takes in blood, circulates it, pumps it out, so that it can reach all these parts of the body. So if we look here in this picture, this is, what the heart actually looks like. It doesn't really look like a little, it's not the way it looks, sorry. More accurate would be something like this thing like this. It's not a little Valentine's Day heart. It's not a greater than sign in a tree.
Why do we call it a heart?
I don't know, it's just sort of a simplified version. I mean, in some ways, if you look at just sort of the outline, it may look a little bit like that, but I don't know, it's just the way we depict it. So the circulatory system consists of the heart, and then arteries, veins, and capillaries, which carry the blood around throughout the body. In our body, it's in our chest, just below our sternum. It's protected by our sternum and our rib cage. Obviously, it's an important organ, so it has pretty heavy-duty protection against injury. It starts in the center of our body, but the larger parts of the heart are on the left side, so it's a little offset in terms of the main all right, so what we're going to do as we talk about circulation is we're going to start with sort of very simple diagram and just talk about how blood flows through our body. Then we'll get a little bit more complex and a little more realistic and start to name the actual parts of the heart, because you're going to have to know those. All right, well, let's start off here with this diagram. This is obviously not very realistic. This is the heart. How many chambers are in mammals' hearts? 4 chambers. So you see them here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? They're separated into 2 separate sides. The right side of the heart and the left side of the heart. Again, why is it reversed on your paper?
Oh, because you're just looking at it like it was.
Because that's like, if that was my heart inside of my body, it's my right side is over here. So the right side of the heart is over there.
It's like the right artery and ventricle.
Yeah, it's the right atrium and ventricle, that's what they're called. All right, so let's begin now on the right side of the heart. So the right side of the heart collects blood from all the parts of your body. So blood that's coming from your brain goes into the right side of the heart. Blood from your stomach, from your legs, from your feet come into the right side of the heart. Now this blood that's coming into the heart from all these parts of your body is what we call deoxygenated blood. What does that word mean?
They don't have oxygen.
The thing like deoxygenated means it does not have a lot of oxygen. Because it's coming from the parts of your body, it just gave those parts oxygen, so it has low level of oxygen. What do you think about the amount of waste products in it?
A lot.
Right, it's high in carbon dioxide. Because it picked up that carbon dioxide from cells throughout your body. So you can sort of think about, this is blood that's kind of used up. It's already done its job. And now it's low in oxygen, it's high in carbon dioxide. that. And so where does this blood need to go? So this blood that is low in oxygen and is high in carbon dioxide, where does it need to go to sort of get recharged? Samantha?
To the lungs to get breathed out.
It needs to go to the lungs. Okay? And that's what this part of the heart, to the lungs. So you can draw a little arrow to show that it's going up to the lungs.
That's cool.
And so what happens to the blood? Once it gets to our lungs, how does the blood change when it gets there, Sydney?
It takes the CO2 out and puts oxygen in.
Yes, it takes in oxygen, because we've just breathed in, so that oxygen goes into the blood. The carbon dioxide that it was holding on to gets released, and we exhale it. So that blood, you could sort of think about it, gets recharged or refreshed. It releases its carbon dioxide. It gets new oxygen. Now, we usually use these colors typically to indicate blood that's high in oxygen or low. We usually use blue for deoxygenated blood and red for oxygenated blood. Now, technically, people think this, it's sort of a fallacy though, that deoxygenated blood is not actually blue. Okay? It's dark red or almost like a purple color, but it's not really blue. Okay? Blood that is rich in oxygen is bright red. Okay? The molecules change when they pick up oxygen. It's very brightly colored. All right, so this blood has been recharged, now has oxygen, it got rid of its carbon dioxide. Where does it go next, do you think?
To the left side.
Yeah, it goes back to the heart. It goes to the left side of the heart, though. So this left side of the heart collects this blood from our lungs, this newly recharged blood, this oxygenated blood that's high in oxygen, it's low in carbon dioxide. Now this blood that's now high in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide, where does it need to go?
To the body.
Yeah, it needs to go everywhere. It needs to go to your brain, into your fingers, into your wrists, into your legs, and your feet, and your stomach. To provide them with the oxygen that those cells need. So the left side of the heart then pumps this blood out to the body. And when I say body, we really mean everywhere in your body. So these blood vessels leave your heart, and they start branching off, carrying this blood to all the various parts of your body. Once this blood gets to your body cells, what does it give them? Nutrients. What else?
Oxygen.
CO2 and waste. So the blood gives up this new oxygen it got from the lungs. It takes in their waste products. And then what?
This is a small box.
Where does this blood have to go next?
To the right side.
Back to the right side to repeat this cycle all over again. Where does this deoxygenated blood need to get to then?
To lungs.
To the lungs to pick up oxygen. Then it goes where?
To the left side.
To the left side. Then where?
To the body.
To the body. And we repeat this over and over again. Right side lungs, left side body. Right side lungs, left side body. And this cycle repeats. Now, every time your heart beats, blood moves a little bit farther along this circuit. Eventually make its way all the way back to the heart again.
So with the right and left side, they never, blood never crosses.
Exactly, and that's the benefit. When we talked about, fish, how the chambers of the heart are helpful. And in a two-chambered heart, blood that's oxygenated, deoxygenated, just mixes together. But in a four-chambered heart, it's kept completely separated. You don't have any mixing of high oxygen blood with low oxygen blood, so it's very efficient at getting the maximum amount of oxygen to the cells.
you ever get like new blood?
You're always creating new blood cells. The blood cells are constantly dying, yes.
Like bone.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
So right side of the blood carries deoxygenated blood. Left side carries oxygenated blood.
I can't color.
That's all right.
Educated.
Just to show the sort of separation. All right. Now, obviously, the heart doesn't look like 4 boxes. So this is a slightly more accurate, not completely though, but it can allow us to at least talk about the
We're
flow
gonna
of
have to
blood.
draw that on again.
What's that? Yeah, but this isn't an accurate drawing of the heart.
Oh, it's not.
Not really.
It's
It's a little bit more. It shows some of the blood vessels. It shows a little bit of the shape. But let's
I think that.
do this again. So now let's name the chambers. So in the previous slide, we just called it the right side, left side. But we know there are names to these chambers. You know what? Have you ever heard the word atrium outside of science?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? Where have you heard it before? What's that? It's like an entryway. So like a big hotel has the main entryway you walk into is called the atrium. Okay, or like a big building. It's an entryway. And so the right atrium, an atrium is an entry, that's where blood enters the heart. It's on the right side of the heart, so this is the right atrium. The next chambers are pumping chambers. You know what they're called? Ventricles. So the right ventricle is down here. So the atrium receives blood, the ventricle squeezes it out. And so on the opposite side, we obviously would have what?
The left atrium.
The left atrium and the left ventricle. All right, if we think about the flow of blood again, blood enters the right atrium. What type of blood is it?
Deoxygenated.
Deoxygenated blood. There's two tubes, they're actually veins that carry blood into the right atrium. This one comes from the lower parts of the body. This one comes from the upper parts of the body. So blood from your legs would be coming up into this tube. They all empty into the right atrium. Then that blood goes through what we call a valve, a one-way door, into the right ventricle, which then pumps it out. Goes through this tube, and now we'll talk more about this, but any blood vessel that carries blood away from the body is an artery. Any blood vessel that carries blood back to the heart, towards the heart, is a vein. So this, what would this be, an artery or a vein?
Artery.
That's an artery, and it's actually called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary just means it has to do with the lungs. So the pulmonary artery carries blood away from the heart to where?
The lungs.
It's going to the lungs.
And over into the lungs.
Again, somebody else that hasn't been answering questions. What happens to this blood when it gets to the lungs? Raise your hand. AJ? It gets out. Anyone else? Somebody fail? What else? Good. It gains oxygen, releases waste and carbon dioxide. Then where does that blood need to go? Kevin? To the left side of the heart. From the lungs back to the left side. Now that was a pulmonary artery. What's the name of that vein, Alexis? Coming from the lungs. That's a pulmonary vein. One comes in from this side. There's actually one that comes from the other side as well. Into the left atrium. Remember, atrium receives blood, goes through a valve into the left ventricle, which then pumps it out. Now, where is this blood headed?
To the body.
Every part of our body. This is an artery that has a special name. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called the aorta, A-O-R-T-A. It's the main artery that leaves your heart. It's the biggest artery in your body.
Well, don't we, how many arteries do we have?
Oh, lots of arteries.
Oh,
And so where does this, so what you'll see is that it branches off. There's little side streets along this path. Each one of those is going to go to a different part of the body. You know, some go up to your brain, some go to the lower body. But we just call that going to the body. Alexis?
Do we have more arteries or veins?
About the same. Because all the blood that gets out to your fingers eventually
it has to come back.
needs to come back. So they're pretty close. All right. Let's just follow some blood cells
Oh, okay.
along their path. So again, right atrium, right ventricle. What are they going through? Pulmonary artery to where?
To the lungs.
To the lungs. What happens to that blood in the lungs? Gets oxygenated, gets rid of waste, and comes back. Left atrium through a valve, left ventricle, through the aorta, to the, and eventually back
To
to the right atrium. If we look here, so our heart beats, about once a second. When we say your heart beats, what we mean is the muscles of these chambers contract and squeeze, forcing blood to go into the next part of the system. So the atrium contracts, sending blood into the ventricle. The ventricle contracts, sending blood out of the heart. And that repeats over and over again. Now the heart is basically a what? What kind of tissue is the heart made out of?
muscles.
Yeah, it's almost all muscle. And it requires a lot of energy. Because it constantly contracts, and if it stops, basically a person dies eventually, it's important it has a constant supply of nutrients and oxygen. And it does that because it has its own blood vessels that supply it with oxygen. Okay, that's what these things are here. And if those blood vessels get clogged by cholesterol or fatty deposits, that can lead to
Death.
by, what do we call it?
Blood stagnation.
A heart attack.
Oh.
If those blood vessels get blocked and blood can't go to the heart muscle itself, it can stop beating, and that can lead to a heart attack. All right, our last slide today is an accurate diagram of the heart.
There's a heart. I see it. I can see the
Kind
heart.
of sideways.
Yeah, kind of.
All right.
There.
So this is a model of the heart.
That's not.
This is just about actual size. It's probably pretty close to an adult human heart size.
Aren't you tell her that big?
You could open it up. You can see the chambers here.
Hey, can we pass it around?
I'll pass it around. Yeah. So again, let's label again. But now we'll give them the accurate names. So let's start with just the chambers. Raise your hand, please, and tell me what is the name of this chamber. Rachel?
The right atrium.
Right atrium. Somebody else, raise your hand. What chamber is this, Julia?
Right ventricle.
That's the right ventricle. Somebody new. Number 9 here. Sean? That's the left atrium. Somebody else that hasn't answered a question yet today. What is this chamber? Brent?
Left ventricle.
That's the left ventricle. So those are our chambers.
Is it actually sideways like this?
Yeah, it's actually sort of diagonal. Okay.
Is it true that your heart's more in the middle?
Yeah, it's close to the middle, but the majority of it's sort of on the left. All right, now, the blood that gets into this right atrium comes through these 2 big tubes. Based on what I told you a little bit earlier, is this an artery or a vein?
It's a vein.
Artery.
Well, because it's coming in, it's a vein.
Vein. It has a special name, this vein. It's called the Vena Cava.
That's a cool
How are we
name.
supposed to fit it on the snow?
I don't know, just for it. Who takes Latin? Anybody?
Nope, we've gone over this 10 times. Nobody takes Latin here.
In my other classes, students take Latin.
Yeah,
this one.
Like Nicholas Lemire.
Fine, wow.
He takes Latin.
This is heavy.
So this Vena Cava, this blood is coming from where?
Muscles.
The body.
Lungs.
Where
The
specifically?
lungs.
Sydney?
The top part of your body.
Top part of your body.
Wow.
Blood from your coming from the lower parts of the body. But it all comes into this right atrium. This is called, alright, that blood that goes through a one-way.
The lungs.
The lungs.
What's its name? AJ?
Pulmonary.
That's the,
That's what it just said.
but it splits off. And one goes this way, one goes this way. Can anyone guess why? I guess I shouldn't say guess. Does anybody know why it branches off into two separate?
Because they go to each lung.
Yes, one, this goes to the left lung, this goes to the right lung. So it carries that deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Then that blood comes back into the heart. It comes in to the heart. Is this an artery or a vein? Artery or vein?
20 arrows.
It's a vein. Which vein is it? It's coming from the lungs,
The aorta.
so it's a pulmonary vein. These pulmonary veins are coming from which lung?
The right. The left.
The left lung. These are coming from the right lung into the left atrium, which pumps the blood down into the ventricle, through valves, and then up through the main artery leaving the heart, which is called the aorta. So the aorta, blood goes through this aorta, and now look at these arrows at the top. These are going to different parts of the upper body. The aorta also loops down, and it goes behind the heart. Where is this going? Lower body. It's all split by this muscle called the septum, which is in between, that splits the heart into two cells. You got all those parts?
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem? Easy? All right.